Brakti Hawa, Brakti How Shine, Brakti Hawa, Brakti How Shine, Brakti Hawa, Brakti How Shine, Call Halom, Yahweh Hashem, Yahweh Shine, Deuteronomy 30 and 7. And the Lord thy power will put all thy curses upon thy enemies and on them that hate thee, which persecuted thee.
A lot of people have blind faith in institutions. Let me tell you something, and I will not say the company. They were baby powder. They had a large shipment of baby powder somewhere in South America, and the cartel liked to kidnap baby powder because they can sell it easily. The cartel attacked it and killed 9 of the security guards. One of my very good friends, he got an email, it explained how much baby powder they lost, how much money they lost, how long it's going to take to get the baby powder back, where the new baby powder shipment is. At the very, very bottom in small print, 9 times. They didn't care about the people who died. They care about the baby powder. This is how governments, big companies work. They don't care if you take and you get hurt. You need to wake up.
Well, during testimony this week, Trump administration officials said fentanyl is America's top national security threat. Not Iran, not Houthi rebels hiding in apartment complexes, but fentanyl brought across the United States border through Mexican drug cartels, of course, facilitated out of China.
It's not just drugs and guns that are considered contraband, but now eggs as well. And you're not going to believe this, but from October to December of last year, they saw a 108% increase in eggs and other poultry items being smuggled. It's all about making money. And so take this example here. In Ciudad Juarez, Mexico, a case of 30 eggs costs just $3.40 right now. But you go across the border to El Paso, Texas, that same case of eggs sells for nearly $15. And we've seen in the past where the cartels have used exports and smuggling of limes and avocados in order to finance their businesses. And we've seen in El Paso, Texas, eggs cost just $3.40 right now. But you go across the border to El Paso, Texas, that same case of eggs sells for nearly $15. And we've seen in the past where the cartels have used exports and smuggling of limes and
And here's what Tulsi Gabbard had to say about it.
And we see that the biggest target is the American citizen, because especially, the Edomites, especially in America, have no love for his own people. So as while all these nations have agreed to the calling of their population to bring in the microchip in the New World Order, they're still as reluctant. America's full force in going in on its people. That see literally it's the things that really the things that are truly healthy for you and mitigate the risk of getting the diseases that the U.S. government propagates are targeted and weaponized. Even things that are illegal, things that obviously were killed, they didn't have legal restrictions on them. They didn't have the same amount of legal restrictions on them until the smoke was found to prevent catching COVID. Not saying that cigarettes are good for you, but the cartel is just do anything for money. It's still a very evil organization.
A dire warning tonight from a local.
What benefit do they have from killing their customer base?
Congressman, drug cartels are continuing to infiltrate parts of the Southland. It's fueling and
But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who becomes president, because it's the same thing that happens. It's a little bit different. Trump would have went to war over Mexico over GMOs. Now they're going to blame this fentanyl crisis on Mexico and China.
explosion of illegal marijuana growing operations, much of it in the Antelope Valley and Acton and Agua Dulce. And KCAL9 political reporter Tom.
LA County Sheriff talked about you. That's according to Congressman Mike Garcia, who represents the area. I want to be very clear that these are not
it's a car.
mom and pop or legal operations that we are fighting. These are large scale illegal operations, in many cases being run by several different cartels right here in our backyard. Congressman Garcia says he surveyed areas by helicopter around the Antelope Valley with LA County Sheriff Alex Villanueva and says the illegal marijuana grows are taking over entire neighborhoods, and he says it's spreading by the day. I saw hundreds, if not thousands, of these illegal nurseries throughout our desert. Being manned by primarily illegal immigrants. Over 90% of the folks working these farms are indentured servants of some form. They're stealing our water. In many cases, they're squatting on our land. Sheriff Villanueva says California's relatively lenient laws and penalties are making the situation worse.
For those of you who voted for Prop 47 thinking there was going to be a legalized and controlled and regulated market, it didn't happen.
They're really moving like a military here, applying, military, in business tactics, man. A very even organization, but on a business levels, it's amazing, But it goes to show you how these, this bureaucracy and how these governments were created to be ineffective, and all these institutions were created to be ineffective to bring their new world order. And these are, and it shows you the true things that are effective, are these organizations that the CIA built to for its own benefit, They funded these organizations. They created this, the Contra artists. They created this, and it's used to destabilize the government. Man, you got CIA fighting DIA. You got really multiple, you got U.S. organizations fighting against the cartel. You have U.S. organizations fighting with them. And that's why DEA arresting CIA agents and shit. When they go into war thinking that they get, we got the terrorists. And the CIA, it's your job to facilitate them for the benefit of the New World Order.
CBS News has learned the maker of OxyContin is offering to pay billions of dollars to settle thousands of lawsuits stemming from the opioid crisis. A government source with knowledge of these negotiations says Purdue Pharma is offering between $5 and $6 billion. Now it comes as we're seeing newly obtained video of a member of the Sackler family, which owns Purdue.
Me asking to see which company was making fun of people who became addicts, who they call hillbillies, and say, you're likely referring to the Purdue Pharma, the maker of OxyContin, the gateway to heroin. The internal email documents revealed that some Purdue Pharma executives and sales representatives, most of the people who became addicted to the drug, particularly those in rural communities. One famous email from Purdue Pharma representatives reportedly used the hillbilly heroin to describe OxyContin, referring to dismissive attitudes towards an opioid crisis affecting rural communities, particularly Appalachia. Purdue Pharma aggressively marketed the drug while downplaying its effect on potential contributing significantly to the opioid epidemic. The company faced multiple lawsuits, ultimately declared bankruptcy in 2019. The Sackler family, which owned Purdue, reached a settlement in which they agreed to pay billions in compensation, though they did not admit personal wrongdoing.
Purdue Pharma defend the marketing of its signature painkiller in a deposition.
Do you believe Purdue's marketing was overly aggressive?
No.
Do you believe Purdue's marketing was appropriate?
I believe so.
Our consumer investigative correspondent, that's Anna Werner, has been closely following the story for months now. And I guess the big question is, what led to the release of this video now?
Well, so this video was obtained by ProPublica. This deposition, it was released as part of a 2015 lawsuit brought against Purdue Pharma by the state of Kentucky, a lawsuit that was ultimately settled for more than $20 million. As we said, that more than 8-hour video deposition obtained by ProPublica, and in it, Dr. Richard Sackler, the former chairman and president of Purdue Pharma, says under oath he does not know how much the family has made off the sale of OxyContin. Now, Purdue Pharma is best known as the developer of OxyContin. The company is facing billions of dollars in potential liability for its role in the nation's opioid crisis. It's unclear how much Purdue's owners, the Sackler family, would have to pay. The company has released a statement saying it's prepared to defend itself in court, but says the company has made clear that it sees little good coming from years.
Oxycodone. Percent of those who misuse opioids get them from a friend or relative's medicine cabinet. Purdue's OxyContins, of those who 60% of those who are prescribed prescription opioids end up with leftover pills. And 70% of those who misuse opioids get them from a friend or relative's medicine cabinet. Purdue's OxyContin's sole active ingredient, oxycodone, is a molecule nearly identical to heroin. That's how we ended up with 4 out of every 5 heroin users starting with a legal prescription drug like Oxy. Unlike other epidemics that we've seen in human history, the opioid epidemic is not natural or normal. It was manufactured by drug companies.
Most of you have probably heard of the highly addictive painkiller OxyContin, considering it's the top-selling branded drug in its category, ranking in over $1 billion last year. With a growing number of addicts, we have to ask who takes responsibility when we get hooked on painkillers? The addicts, the doctors prescribing the drugs, the pharmaceutical companies? How many inadvertent addicts and deaths is this drug responsible for? Well, joining us today to talk about it in our Google Hangout are Dr. Laura Brown, a pain management physician and founder of WakeUpNow.org in San Diego, California; Dr. Gregory Smith, the producer of the film American Addict in Fresno, California; Cindy Harney, a mother in Sarasota, Florida; and on the phone we have Frank Morris, a recovered addict in Brooklyn, New York.
I've been addicted to drugs one with the other, not really knowing that I was addicted. I was a major pot and drinker in high school and in college. I did more of that and messed around with other drugs. And I was having chronic migraines, which I've now learned is because of the excess stuff in my system. And a friend had OxyContin. And for me, the issue wasn't so much as taking it. I mean, taking it worked. And when it worked, it wasn't addictive. The problem for me was that the company produced it in a way where I could actually freebase the pill or crush it up and inject it. And I experimented with that. And the effect just immediately flipped the light switch in my brain. And I couldn't stop.
How different is, I mean, we look at this term, let's get to the bottom of why it's called that and how it compares to heroin. Are the components similar? Is it similarly addictive?
Well, the term really came from the part of the country that the OxyContin was being spread to, being brought up from states like Florida before those states were more regulated.
And Kentucky being really the worst state, right, in terms of abuse.
Yeah, people were really going on vacation to places like Florida and other states to get the drugs and then come back and sell them. So it was a huge problem. But I think OxyContin is particularly addictive. I mean, all narcotics share similar properties, but for me, and I do quite a few, have a certain type of protocol I do for patients with these problems. I think OxyContin is more difficult in many ways to get people off of than heroin.
Obviously, this drug is being overprescribed, but when you have pharmaceutical companies sort of standing behind those numbers saying, listen, our drug is really helping people, how much responsibility and accountability should we be looking at with them?
I think these.
So imagine you dealing with, imagine you're a Trump supporter. I mean, imagine you voted for Obama. You see America going down the shithole. You're losing everything. You're still, maybe owning your farm or whatever. It's being more difficult. Maybe you got to trade. You don't have all the old benefits that you used to have. America used to be a great place to live, man, for a white person. The white person said that, man. How, when you really go understand when buying a house only costs 2 years of your salary, you be seeing why the baby boomers be geeking. They say, oh, back in my day we didn't have depression. Fuck, I wouldn't be depressed, man, if I could get everything that a boomer had, and I was still thinking in the world. Like that should be lit. Really, as a boomer, man, imagine you bought a plot of land, bro. You could have bought a house, man. You every few years you could have built another house next to each other, man. You could have had your wife set up, man. You really could have had your shit set up, you know. But yeah, like when I'm the source of addiction is that the mousetrap, you know, they took everything away from Babylon, man. They took everything away from the American citizen. Now you're the number one target, man. If you could have a nice house that you ain't gotta die for. You could have a loyal woman. Society, societal standard that was pushing towards marriage. You know, you could have order and children. And you didn't have all this. You didn't have as much high level witchcraft. Uh, pushed onto your children. You didn't have as much poison. You know, being pushed through the air, food, and da 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 da. Da. And this new generation be upset when the boomer says, "Oh, I didn't know about this depression. Da, 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 da. We didn't hear about this da 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 da." But we have much more high level witchcraft being targeted against you.
Pharmaceutical companies deserve to have a lot of accountability. There was a lot of money put into marketing these very strong pain pills for years and years. Unfortunately, a lot of the physicians bought into the marketing and started prescribing a lot more liberally. We went through a period where, from 2000 to 2010, that we actually had a decade of pain, where physicians were encouraged to prescribe opioids for non-cancer pain for patients. And the whole culture of pain management shifted during that decade. And that's the same decade we've seen these increases in deaths.
Because it's like if you're going through cancer, you have cancer, and then you're going through the chemo, you're dealing with all that radiation. It sounds like the opioid would be beneficial to you.
Related to prescription drugs, specifically prescription.
It's not like you're actually getting better,
Prescription pain medicines.
My son died in '06 from a prescription drug overdose. It was Oxycontin and Xanax.
An Oxycontin and Xanax combination.
Correct. And in our own community, we have had 109 deaths that year. My question is, why is the manufacturer not held accountable? Any other company, just because they have lobbyists, I'm not sure how come we're not outraged.
What we realize is that in the face of this growing epidemic, the only real solution, in my opinion, is prevention. And I think we need to prevent first-time use, because once somebody uses these powerful drugs, it's hard for them to stop. I also believe very strongly that we have to start with young people. We need to start with teens. We need to start with teens for multiple reasons.
I mean, yeah, that's true and all, but it's funny what she's saying is, I mean, realistically, the percent of people who try it and go hard, I mean, obviously it's higher than you think, but also at the same time, the what really leads to addiction is being prescribed to your doctor and you needing it for a certain pain. You have extra pills or whatever, and then you run through, and then you run out, and then you need more, and then you're already addicted, and you keep getting that drug, and then that drug gets more expensive, and it's destroying your life, but it gets more expensive, so you go do something, harder, that's cheaper. But even that gets more expensive, and to pull away more from your life. So then now you went from oxy, now you went to heroin, and then oh shit, you could get if you inject it, you could get high about half the amount. It's a rabbit hole. So if we go into the word pharmakia, sorcery, witchcraft, pharma, kia, like pharmaceutical, pharma, medication. Oh, see, niggas be trying to argue. Oh, no, no, no. Oh, what do you think? What do you think it means? Niggas will have debate. Literally, medication, pharmacy, magic, sorcery, witchcraft, man. Sorcery, magic connected with idolatry and fostered by it. The use or administering of drugs, opioids.
Reasons. One, because they're being faced with the opportunities to use these drugs at very young ages. But two, our research now shows that the teen brain is still developing until the age of 25. And when these kids are exposed to these powerful chemicals at such young ages, they have an 8 times greater risk of becoming addicts.
Ecclesiasticus 25:7. There be 9 things which I have judged in my heart to be happy. In the 10th, I will utter with my tongue a man that hath joy of his children, and he that liveth to see the fall of his enemies. You know? And that's what we get to see, man. They rejoiced in our fall. Man, they got to live a great life after our fall. But now these weapons that are meant for us in the other nations is meant to destroy them and to call them into to get rid of the dissent for the new world order.
80%, we're 5% of the world's population, but we use 80% of the world's prescription narcotics. And this is not by happenstance. I mean, there is a collective effort in this country when it comes from the media, the big pharmaceutical companies, political things of that nature, all sort of gelling together.
And I will punish the world for their evil and the wicked for their iniquity, and I will cast the arrogancy of the proud to cease and lay low the haughtiness.
Not just addictive drugs. I'm talking about antidepressants and pills for headaches and sleeping. I mean, we have become a society that tries to solve problems with pills.
Well, during testimony this week, Trump administration officials said fentanyl is America's top national security.
And if we were into pills, we should just be the herb. But ultimately, there's not an insane amount of money in that. They want to create things and fabricate things and patent chemical compounds. And then charge insurance out the wazoo. It's crazy.
Security threat. Not Iran, not Houthi rebels hiding in apartment complexes, but fentanyl brought across the United States border through Mexican drug cartels, of course, facilitated out of China. And here's what Tulsi Gabbard had to say about it. Cartels were largely responsible for the deaths of
Malachi 1 and 2. I have loved you, saith the Lord Yahweh, yet wherein hast thou loved us? Was I not Esau, Jacob's brother, saith the Lord? I have loved Jacob. I hated Esau and laid his mountains waste and his heritage waste for the dragons of the wilderness. Whereas Edom saith, we are impoverished, but we will return and build the desolate places. Thus saith the Lord of armies, they shall build, but I will throw down. They shall call them the borders of wickedness, the people of the Lord, whom the Lord have indignation forever.
More than 54,000 U.S. citizens from synthetic opioids during the 12-month period that ended in October of 2024, just before the election. And so how can we stop this? And those numbers might even seem kind of low if you actually include all.
Jeremiah 10:25, pour out thy fury upon thy heathen, that they know thee not, upon thy families, that they call not thy name, for they have eaten up Jacob and devoured him and consumed him, have made his habitation desolate. So the way he's destroyed our habitation, that Lily made us a social class of poverty, of danger, of slave work. Redlined us. Funded the drugs. CIA. Funded the cartels to fight their wars. And then using the funding, the creating the drug trafficking operation so they can continue to fund them outside the approval of the government. Put the drugs in our communities, man, to really break our revolutionary spirit. Huh? Then they go put the music. You know, the CIA, the gangs, and now they put the music in the in the gangs. They make it very fashionable. Everything that they do to destroy a community, bro. The Lord is doing the same thing to them, and He's using their own to do it. You know, at least another nation came and destroyed us. Their own nation, don't give a fuck about them and is destroying them to institute the chip.
Of those fentanyl-related overdoses in this. So how can this be stopped? Well, J.C. Shepard has really dedicated his life to trying to stop this. He's the founder of the fentanyl test, which is really one of the only over-the-counter tests that you can give your children to actually see if they're involved in this horrible drug or not. And J.C. joins us now.
So if they say white supremacy is not the greatest, this is white supremacy. This pharmacia is white supremacy. You try to come with a different form of medicine, it's mocked. It's scoffed at. The her for medicine. Even using the best of our technology to apply to herbal medicine to get the best. That's not what they want. This is a chemo radiation world. This is a pharmacia world. Pharmacia has become the standard. No, Isaiah 47:17. 49:17. No weapon that is formed against thee shall prosper. Every tongue that shall rise against thee in judgment thou shalt condemn. This is the heritage of the servants of Yahweh, and the righteousness is of me, saith the Lord Yahweh.
Welcome to the show. Great to have you here.
Thank you so much, Clayton. I really appreciate it.
First, just your response to seeing Tulsi Gabbard, the Director of National Intelligence, during this hearing this week say that fentanyl is America's #1 threat. Did you agree with that?
Oh, 100%. I mean, it's music to our ears, first and foremost, because our goal with the fentanyl test is to pretty much go out of business. We want this drug gone. This is basically just to save Americans. And, I love how you said that number might seem low in terms of the 54,000, because I think one of the only individuals on earth that's saying it correctly is Donald Trump, because I think most people have been in an inner city environment to where you see how this has decimated the homeless.
Let's go look at some of the faces of this. The Bay Area Police union leader allegedly smuggled fentanyl into the U.S. to sell in bulk. Segovia received 61 shipments for 8 years, federal prosecutors allege. The head of the police union, San Francisco Bay Area, faces federal charges for allegedly smuggling thousands of synthetic opioids into the U.S. from multiple countries with the intent to distribute them. So, she's 64 years old. She's 64. She did not do this by herself, and she obviously seen a lot of police officers, a lot of people in high positions doing it. So she did it. 64. So over 8 years. Is that what it said? Over 8 years. What, 50, so she 52 is it? So, she didn't just not think, oh, I'm like 52. Let me just start hopping on. San Jose Police Officers Association executive charged with the attempt to unlawfully import controlled substances, specifically Valrol, fentanyl, and a fentanyl analog.
I mean, those people are never being autopsied. So you can add at least 150,000 to that number.
Wow. Oh, I have never heard that. That makes perfect sense. And I just got chills thinking about that. I haven't heard anyone talking about that. So these homeless, no one's footing the bill for these autopsies. And they're just...
So who is selling to her? Who is she selling to? How many high-level fentanyl dealers would be buying in that, she wouldn't bump, that she would just look over.
Dying on the streets. I mean, you see the videos driving down Kensington Avenue in Philadelphia, and it looks horrible. I mean, my home city, just seeing it looks like zombies. It looks like something out of a horror film. These people just dying on the streets of fentanyl overdoses.
Yes, so I've talked to some Philadelphia executives. By the way, we're headquartered in Pittsburgh, PA, so we're from the same state. But, it's unbelievable that, the way that we approached this was, hey, we're trying to save lives. And they know that. I mean, not Philadelphia, whether you're liberal or liberal or conservative, they're not saying that they want people to die from this. So we think we should probably state that. But they basically said we can do nothing for Kensington. We can do nothing.
I already filmed this over, so I might not even really get too deep in the video. But, 22. They said 22 kids a week. They said, I think they said 22 kids a week die from fentanyl. They 10 years ago they just would have been trying a drug. Just be a kid kind of off to a bad start. A kid potentially going through a bad phase or going down a bad path. He could have bounced back. Not given that chance to because this is a eugenics operation. It's a eugenics style.
Help because these people want that drug. They seek it out. It's one of the only places on earth, maybe Philadelphia, Kensington, of course, some parts of San Francisco, some parts of Los Angeles, and Baltimore. That is really the only.
But people do seek it out outside of those places, man. You'll be seeing plugs talk about, start asking me for something, man. You say, oh, but people don't be looking for that. I should know. No, people are really asking for that. It's that the economics of drugs, always escalating to something cheaper and more effective, and especially with shit. Honestly, bro, you homeless, bro. You going down the path of fuck death, bro. Who gives a fuck about that, bro? But shit, but I mean, you know niggas who was on fentanyl and they was living, bro. Like shit, you having friends, man, who kick fentanyl, bro. That shit crazy.
People on earth, they're actually genuinely overdosing because they're seeking out that drug. Everybody else, and you'll always see in the mainstream media that it's always an overdose. That's not the case. About 87% of people that are dying from fentanyl are poisonings because they don't know it is in the substance they are using. So it's very rare for individuals to actually, and in Kensington is just, that's a whole difference for your skin. So, but when
our audience to learn. So that is a unique situation, what we're seeing in Philadelphia. And I'm sure that makes all the videos.
Well, fentanyl poisoning, I'll just talk about it from a test basis, if that's okay.
Sure.
We designed our tests for law enforcement. So they can test something, on the side of the road, they can test.
And it's an epidemic that affects white people probably more than it does us, And that's unacceptable for them,
Any substances when they pull somebody over, right there on the spot without throwing that substance in water. So we wanted to design a test that was non-dilution based that could test any surface or substance, including liquids, for the ones that want to test their children at home. If something is not trouble breathing, even if you're getting close to actually, school, it's something that awareness.
22 children a week who are 14 years and under is absolutely shocking and devastating. And we're in Colorado, and where they've got a big vaping problem. You hear about all these kids that are vaping. So
no, absolutely.
So what sense does it make? I mean, fentanyl, the economics of pressing down to pills kind of makes sense, but weed, on vapes, these things that are just designed to just to get as many people as it can, man. And that's a new world order, man. That's the same energy that was coming with that with that mandatory immunization. The same way they come in, with that mandatory chip.
Maltz was on our last fentanyl roundtable, and he taught us,
take it or we're gonna take you out the way.
A lot within his 90 minutes of being on there. And when he was still at the DEA, they were finding pill presses that would make 30,000 pills an hour. Okay, and per him, 7 out of 10 illegal pills. This is Adderall, this is Vicodin, this is oxycodone, Xanax. Anything kids are thinking they're buying, 70% of them have enough fentanyl to kill that person, at least one person. Everything now is being laced with fentanyl. So it's absolutely insanely dangerous for anybody to even take a substance. I mean, I remember I'm in DC a lot, and I'm in Pittsburgh, so it's not that far of a drive. People have seen graphics to where if you cover the date of a penny with fentanyl powder,
correct URL, way cheaper than going to like a drugstore. And you've got two different tests. So one where you're actually testing the urine of the person to see if they've ingested
the weight that they threw in that water. So we designed that so it's legal to carry. So, but yeah, you can carry, I believe it's up to 2 milligrams of fentanyl. And that is enough if it's mixed with other substances that can kill up to 10 people.
It's devastating. I mean, how is this getting to our children? Can you just...
There are things that if you're driving, man, if you have an open bottle, you're not even drinking while driving. Take it. You have an unopened bottle in the front of your car, not in the trunk. Take it. If you're driving, you're not drinking, and the passenger is drinking, take it. This is the Esau world.
Real quickly, kind of walk me through how it's coming across the border through these cartels, and then I also know that there's really a demand for it as well, right? So we've got to stop the demand for it as well as cut off the flow of it.
Yeah, I mean, once you touch fentanyl,
study, what they call it Rat Park. So they did a study where they put rats in this very sterile environment, laboratory environment, bright lights, no toys, no nothing, and they gave them the option of water or water with cocaine. And they always took the water with cocaine. They just kept taking the water with cocaine. But then when they put them in Rat Park, which is a much larger thing with a lot of toys and things to do and a lot of places to run around, they didn't do that. They just drank the water.
Right.
But that makes sense. It's like they're fucking living in hell. And the cocaine water is the only thing that gives them any good feeling. And so they just keep going back to that good feeling. But when you give them a normal, natural environment where they can just exist, I wonder if that's the case with people that live, like, say, a subsistence lifestyle. You know, if they have access to something like heroin or cocaine, I wonder if they would just ignore it. Study, what they call it,
So if you got to live more of a difficult lifestyle, you could deal with multiple women as long as you was responsible. But you go look at the boomer when you could work and you could pay for your house with 2 years of a salary. You know, the women maybe complaining, oh, they want you to pay for all their stuff, yada yada yada. But they have all these big dreams, right? You just gotta be Jake. You know, you just gotta be a multi-millionaire. You know, and just to deal with within the family dynamics, because you don't want to financially reevaluate her expectations, right? But they'll say, but you say to them, it's this world that you created where you're equal and where and really, no, I didn't even say that. I said, so in a world where a man can have multiple wives, I could buy you a house, mama a house, all my women houses, no problem. But in this world where you could say, oh no, you have to have one wife, you have to have one life, it takes damn near two people to go work. It's your mindset and how you think things. That's why you can't have what you want. Silent. So at the end of the day, they may not be. The thing about dealing with Eve and Jake is you could get Eve to shut up. She argue back and forth, yada yada yada, and she'll never agree, yada yada yada. When you say things that are factual, but she don't want to say, she'll at least be quiet, and that's one thing. So in this war that you fight for, is the war that you have to work and you have to keep slaving. You know. So it's the things that you fight for are the things that make your life hard and the things that make you happy. If you give up these things, it would give the men power to go create an environment which is better for you. You know. But you think you controlling the situation, you just leading to self destruction, and you just dealing with just dealing with the impossible will suck the life out of Jake. Jake, I'm not doing that. But it's just dismounting the cage. These women be in friend groups and they be conspiring against the men in their relationship. What if you was in you had a sisterhood amongst the wives of your sisters, towards one man. So instead of one man, you coming against this man, you know, and all these women, giving advice on how to deal with a man individually instead of a team of men working with, with a man and a husband. And instead of dealing with postpartum depression, man, it's not just pressing on one person to go provide and to deal with all your emotions. When you also have a team of women who are there helping you, taking care of the kids and yada yada, babysitting, splitting time. When you actually have how you isn't depressing to go to work and it's like, damn, you only get to have your kid when they're useless when they're 5, and then when you actually have time where you could actually teach them shit. The institutions get all the time, then you got to work to go provide for that kid. And you're not even the primary educator of your kid. Some overweight 40-year-old white woman, very left, maybe dyed short hair, rainbow hair, is the primary teacher of your kid. What's the point of what's you know? So, your kid going to school being taught that everything that you do is wrong and you're archaic and da 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 da. What they are on is on the new stuff. So you don't even, and then you send your kid to. So now, especially when my kid finally grows up, and now the real relationship begins when they're 18, and I actually get to, see what type of person that they become and really give them the advice and negotiate them. I send them out to another institution for 4 years so they get to just take all their time to get filled with, institutional doctrine and to get fucked. And now she's been out here left and right sleeping with everybody, your inability to pair bond with somebody. So instead of actually, and your body count and your happiness in marriage is directly correlated. So now she out here jumping, hopping from this to that and that and this. Stopping her ability to feel happiness. Man, so that's the solution. But that's not coming because this is the new world order, man. I mean, the solution's coming. Even to all you heathen. You heathen be crying in the comments. It's gonna come to all the heathen, after 1,000 years of captivity. After 1,000 years of hardcore captivity. After 1,000 years of hardcore captivity, man, you're gonna live in a world of righteousness where you're not even gonna feel the need to do drugs, man. Yeah, you're gonna, you may deal with some intoxicating substances, I mean, for pleasure, but not these opioids. You're not gonna have the need on the breath. Let me go take this opioid. You're gonna have the wine, but wine is gonna be dealt with such a way that is good. Wine's not the problem, man. It's just your relationship with it, yeah. And it's gonna be in perfect balance of wine of the world. If you want to drink wine, but you want to be a wine bibber in righteousness, and you're riding your horse or you're working in the field, hey, that's up to you. Some of these people are DOIs, man. They weren't meant to drive. They were just meant to be drunken farmers and shit. Go do that shit. People can't stop drinking and driving, or dealing with the marijuana plant in righteousness or whatever. Whatever's in righteousness we gonna have, and this world's gonna be a better place. Niggas is not gonna turn, and it's just gonna be for either relief or joy, because wine does bring gladness, bring gladness of heart, you know. But all these things that Esau just turned the relationship onto everything's evil. Maybe there's a righteous use for opioids or whatever. I don't know, but we'll find out. We'll find out all that in the kingdom. You know. Okay. Back to Yahweh, back to Yahushua, back to Yahweh, back to Yahushua. Call on me. How about Shem Yahushua? Come on.